My life didn't always focus on goals and late night coding. I grew up in a quiet small town where I didn't pay much attention to technology when I was younger. But I loved computers and that made me a bit different from other kids. I would spend hours using them, taking apart and putting back together old gadgets that my father saved from his job at the recycling plant. When I was 10 years old, I built my first working computer using extra parts, like a mix of different things thrown together. In high school, I started using a slow computer system, which sparked my interest in technology. Obsession. I spent long nights coding simple games and learning computer languages from dusty library books. Even though my parents were worried at first, they backed my drive. Even when it meant spending money we couldn't really afford. Better tools over the years helped me achieve my dream of creating software that. Getting my first job at a small company felt like a big achievement that could change my life. The job was hard, and the pay was low, but the excitement of making something from scratch was very enjoyable. That's where I met Sophie. She was a graphic artist who paid close attention to detail and had a smile that could brighten any room. On the gloomiest of days, we connected because of our common goals and soon became inseparable during our early years together. We were hopeful and determined, putting our all into our hopes and helping each other through long days. When our daughter Amelia was born, the late nights and early mornings seemed to show how hard we had worked. I promised to. I want to give her the stability I missed in my childhood. But as my work progressed, the demands increased. Sophie often took care of Amelia by herself while I worked long hours. Deadlines over time the cracks began to show what started as a catch-and fights over time spent apart turned a divide between us that neither of us wanted or could fix. I thought we could handle any difficulties, but I was mistaken. The day wore me out. My team and I worked late into the night again because its intense work times required a lot of effort. As the lead engineer, I felt it was important to stay involved, often being the last one to leave. Tonight was not an exception. Different after setting the building security system I made my way through the dimly lit parking lot toward my. I was excited to take my crimson BMW 650 coupe for a quick drive home. The number of bugs in the project has started to go down, but there are still some left. Hundreds to address our path at Stabelas and the team seem to be handling the pressure in Utah. In 2 weeks, we will be ready to give the gold. As I walked through the area, I heard a sharp noise. I was lost in my thoughts with no music in the car suddenly. I heard a clear sound of footsteps. I turned quickly and froze. A gun was pointed at me, and my instinct was to duck. However, I didn't duck fast enough, and the Colt fired. A sharp, burning pain shot through my chest as a bullet hit my shoulder, knocking me backward. Trunk of an RV car and I crumpled to the ground under the stark glow of the street lights the assailant stood. I heard a shot. Then another. I lost count of how many there were. A second bullet hit me in the side, as the gun pierced my lower rib. My vision became blurry and I felt weak. I moved closer, knowing it was the end. I was filled with thoughts of my wife Sophie and my daughter Amelia, and I felt sorrow. I mourned the long nights and the time I missed with them. Their voices kept calling to me. I saw something in the distance, but I couldn't concentrate. The ZT shot again, hitting my left side. After the shooter ran away, someone we recognized. Nora showed up. The graphic designer leaned over me and was talking, but I couldn't understand what she was saying. Son. Daniel. Our helper. Came over. The producer and Steve. Our AI programmer. Joined her. Looking worried. I could feel my power slipping away. I held on to the image of Nora's face until everything went black. When I woke up, I felt intense pain in my chest. I was in a hospital bed looking at a stranger with defibrillator shocks. I had been dead. But somehow they brought me back. When I woke up next, the pain was less intense but still there. A nurse was moving my leg. The bullet had hit me. And when I tried to speak, my throat was dry. So I could only make a rough sound. The nurse quickly called for a doctor. As time went on, I started to understand what was happening around me. I realized that I had been in the hospital for 10 months. My daughter Amelia had visited early on but hadn't been back in 6 months so yes. Whereabouts were a puzzle. No one could tell me anything about her or what had happened after the shooting by medical. The note said to call the police when I woke up. And son to detectives arrived, Mr. William Blackwood. The older of the two started speaking. He nodded. And introduced himself as Detective Ethan Hayes. He was with his partner, Dario Boussy. Wanted to discuss the night he was attacked. Share the fragmented details he could remember but the questioning. Boussy asked Blackwood directly if he knew his wife was cheating. Catching him off guard, Hayes shot me a serious look. What happened? He stammered. Sophie, wouldn't do that. Where is she? She can explain. Hayes replied. Carefully, I'm sorry to tell you this but she was her lover was Isaac Gould. Does that name mean anything to you? The name hit me like a punch. Isaac Gould, my daughter's middle school English teacher. Hayes nodded. That's where they likely. Did you hear that he lost his teaching job? I shook my head in shock. It just didn't make sense. Sophie had meant everything to me. After Amelia was born, we were always together. I worked hard to provide a good life for her. How could this happen? Hayes was fired because he had a relationship with an 18-year-old student, which was not against the law. He broke school rules and had a hard time finding a job afterward. When his father died, he took over the responsibilities. Family coffee shop He Cafe murmured. Sophie often bragged about their coffee. Exactly, I confirmed. We believe they're connected there. That Tracy admitted. She visited there often. But he thought their coffee was terrible. Hayes agreed that the business wasn't making money. I can't believe it. He thought she was just going there a lot. But it seems she was barely making any profit. That don't mean she was involved with him. Hayes leaned forward, looking serious. Let's set that aside for now. He asked if my house has a protection system. I said yes. And they wanted to know what kind. I asked for alarms on the doors, motion monitors downstairs, and a link to the alarm company. No cameras. No cameras. Hayes raised an eyebrow again. I shook my head and said no. I never trusted the idea of records being kept somewhere. Company computers. Too many hacks. Did you install any yourself? Hayes asked his tone probing. No, I said firmly. The only the cameras I have at home are my DSLR and the webcams on our computers. Why? Hayes? You paused before answering that. We discovered a secret DVR system in your basement that had been recording for weeks. Shooting my stomach dropped. Who put it there? He demanded, leaning forward. We. I thought it was you. Hayes said, narrowing his eyes. But the recording suggests something different. What did it show? I asked. Boistait evidence of the affair is evenly and prove your wife and her lover planned the attack on you. The revelation hit hard. Like a knife to my stomach. I asked if there is a video of them together. Feeling upset. Process she wanted me dead for money for what a life insurance payout is. She nodded seriously. Convincing herself that you were unfaithful. And they plan to take action. Everything including $1 million policy frowns shaking my head in disbelief that's not possible I don't. I explained that a strategy like that was removed 2 years ago. Years I repeated my voice dropping off was the affair really that old day. I had a traveling thought. But it didn't matter anymore. So I ignored it. I asked. Where are they now? And focused on what was happening right now. Gould had run away. To Mexico after questioning I explained the latter took his own life living behind the statement your wife. She has vanished and no one has seen or heard from her. There has been no contact or activity of any kind. I hit none. And I confirmed there were no calls or banking. I felt overwhelmed. I was tired. But I stayed calm. My daughter hasn't come to see me in months because she moved out west for college. I answered. We checked her address at the University of Washington. I'm trying to remember the last time we spoke. We discussed going there. And talk I didn't say yes. And added to show I was okay with it. I said to check her information. I relaxed and took a slow breath as I felt the seriousness of the situation. I begot 3 riddles to solve matter to myself 3 he asked tilting his head where my wife is he said. I'm trying to remember who put into the camps and what happened to my daughter's friend. Ryan Carter. My boyfriend smiled and said. The last one is on you, we take care of the rest. The next morning. I was moved from the I was taken from the long-term care center back to the hospital to start rehabilitation. The nurses were friendly. It seemed like most patients in the new ward didn't walk out on their own from the nurses' station. I saw my daughter with tears on her face. Her look quickly changed from shock to joy when she realized I was there. She felt overwhelmed with emotion. Rushed to me. Kissed my face. And held my hand. She expressed her relief that I had survived. And then a nurse kindly led her back to the station as they got things sorted out. I sat in my room. Feeling the impact of the detective's words. My wife's betrayal was true. She cheated on me and plotted to have me killed. For a short time. I hoped it wasn't true. It was true that she would come back. And we could fix our family. But she in Amelia's. How have you been holding up? I asked when she came into the room. Showing the tough situation we were in. Riley smiled and said. Oh. I've been doing fine just living my life while you've been sleeping through the year. Too bad. Plain sleeping beauty didn't make you look any better. For the first time since waking up. I laughed. How are you doing? How did you handle everything? I asked gently. I'm fine. Da. She responded. Her voice calm but genuine. But you should be the one answering that. Not me. She paused for a moment. Just a moment. Nora said. Your office was my lifeline. She moved in with me. She supported me through Thanksgiving. Christmas. My graduation. And getting ready for college. She even battled with social services to be there for me. Legal guardian her rent kept the bills but she really stepped up when I needed her most and added my heart full of. I'm thankful. I have always liked Nora. And I'm happy she was there for you. What about Ryan? Her face changed. She seemed upset. Ryan didn't. I agreed with the time I spent at the hospital and wanted to use the empty houses a week after you were shot. I didn't call or text his friend. His friend told me he lost his job and moved back in with his parents. But that's not true. My parents passed away years ago. I asked about him. But he just vanished. He said, truthfully. Good riddance. You're better off without him. She rolled her eyes and said, why didn't you say that earlier? Your mom told me. Just get closer to him. If he did. Her mouth clenched. Next time. Trust me not to share your true feelings. Mom. You're mistaken about many things. I remember that I made a promise. And she kept insisting on it. I smiled and asked if there was someone new in her life. She nodded happily in response. She said she's interested in someone but will see what happens when she goes back to school. What about you? I am learning computer engineering. Focusing mainly on hardware. I just built a digital device. Used a pressure sensor and LEDs to build a skull. And it worked exactly the first time. I smiled with pride. But then she brought up school. Thinking about her mother's brilliance made me feel different. And Amelia noticed it by the way her forehead creased. What is it? Dad, she asked quietly. Just some old memories about Mom, I replied. And she guessed. With sour tone. She spoke. I agreed that she was clever. Andy suggested that her intelligence comes from her. Her eyes seemed to spark with emotion. I don't feel anger. I get it from you. Mom is only fit for hell. I was hit by what she said but kept going. Amelia. After I got shot. Is all this anger just because I found out what she did? She crossed her arms and she looked away and tried to get rid of you. Don't you think that's enough? Her tone was harsh. But then it became gentler as she continued. She changed after the killing. At first, she was very dedicated. I stayed at the hospital all the time. They let me go home to shower and change. But I didn't leave your side much. After a week, things were still the same. When you didn't wake up. She changed. Amelia's voice became tense as she spoke. She talked about how she began dressing up and stopped going to the hospital. After school, I went to see her but found out she had been absent all day. I quietly listened as she kept talking. She felt burdened by painful memories and became paranoid when the cops began asking questions, leading her to act unusually. She started acting differently, changing her habits and not talking to anyone. Then one morning, she took me to school. As usual. When I got home, she wasn't there. I called the hospital. And they told me she hadn't come by. When I noticed something was seriously wrong. Amelia stopped. Took a deep breath. And then continued talking about the night Nora called. She checked on me like she usually did when she couldn't see you. I told her that Mom was missing. And she came over. Immediately she even stayed the night. The next morning we went to the police. They searched the house and that's when everything fell apart. Amelia paused and looked at me closely. Dad, did you know? There were hidden cams in the basement. I firmly said I had no idea about it. I don't know who put them there. But I wish she did. Maybe they could have told me about her affair or what she really was. She nodded slowly. So, You didn't install them? He replied. No, whoever did it wasn't me. Did you know her lover? She asked. Her tone full of sharp interest. Maybe they could have saved my life if they had spoken up. He nodded reluctantly. I was my middle school teacher. But he hadn't seen him since he finished. He paused before speaking. She asked what happened after the cops found the videos they recorded. Her voice got intense. A officer told me to call if my mom got in touch. But they didn't say what was in the messages and then just left a social. A worker came in and said they would contact child services because she was alone. She stopped to take a deep breath. When Nora arrived, she said he wasn't alone and quickly got involved. Your company helped her find a lawyer. She worked hard to become my formal guardian. Until he turned 18. Her tone changed and sounded bitter. But, after that, it was different. They just left without any support or follow-up. They totally let her down. Her voice shook with anger. Andy Cole sensed the pain in what she said. Not just about the system's problems but also about something deeper. She felt abandoned. Even though she knew didn't leave her on purpose. The pain was still fresh. I'm really sorry. Sweetheart. He said he had tears in my eyes because I wish she could have been there for you. He would make her face gentler with tears rolling down her cheeks. Sign. I know. I know. Knowing you were fighting to life kept me motivated. I couldn't give up because you didn't. And Nora helped a lot too. Everything's fine. She paid the bills. Helped me finish school. And chose my. Nora went to college with me and joined me for introduction. I'm really thankful for her. When he asked where she is now, I found out she's at work. Amelia said she visited this morning because she heard you moved out of the care facility. She will be back tonight. I'm happy to say that she's still living at the house. Amelia said it was amazing that she made sure you were okay. I wouldn't have gone to W if she hadn't agreed to check on you. Every week. You should follow your goals. I said if W was where you wanted to be. I'm happy you went to see your grandfather. I would be so happy because it was his alma mater. I always wanted me to go there. But life took a different path. She had other plans. But before she could speak, a doctor came to check on me and he was okay for my physical treatment to begin. After I finished, a nurse took Amelia away to talk about my discharge plan and the help I would need afterward. As I left the hospital, I felt alone and my anger bubbled up. As I thought about my wife's deception, I realized she left Amelia when our daughter needed her the most. You might be considered an adult, but no one should have to experience losing both parents. Especially when one is in a coma and the other has passed away. It wasn't fair for Amelia to be alone. Nora stepping in was a good thing. But Amelia shouldn't have had to depend on her. Anyone else in the first place. I was still trying to make sense of it all, the idea that my wife had not only you cheated on me and even planned to kill me. It felt like a bad dream. And part of me wanted to see it happen. The cops said the hidden camera recording story moved me down. But I knew the truth inside. Her absence was all the evidence I needed. Why did she do it? Was it because she wasn't home enough? I always said I understood my hopes' demands. We had enjoyable moments during breaks between projects. And I had even made plans. I want to take a long break after this one, which is almost 2 months off, to spend the holidays with everyone. She knew that he would be home more often, which made it difficult for her to sneak away to see him. Did she really love him? Or was he just a distraction? It might have been an easy way to avoid things. Maybe my absence created a gap that he could fill with his own lack of opportunities. They chose to take everything that worked for our family. But that idea didn't make sense. He thought he knew the woman. But unless she's found, he might never understand why she did it. Even if he did find out, it might not make sense. The officials found her. But there was no certainty she would be honest with me. It was better to concentrate on what was happening now. Amelia came back after talking to the nurse. And we started discussing lighter subjects. She talked about her classes, her projects, where her friends went to college, and stories about her new experiences. She talked about going to Washington Huskies football games and watching Seattle Thunderbirds games with friends in Seattle. During hockey matches. Her energy was contagious. And for a moment, it felt like everything was great. Was normal again later. Nora arrived with news from the office. She shared talk. There is a report about the project we were working on before the shooting and news about the sequel to My Last Game. The new project was running into big problems because Daniel left to take a producer job in the Bay Area. It showed who on the team had actually been doing the important work. Management finally had proof of what he had told them before. Mike, our producer, was trying to blame Daniel's replacement, who is a new assistant producer. Mike hired someone from a medical software company who had no experience in games. Nora mentioned this person. She is thinking about leaving to work on her own projects. Which makes me wonder if she has stayed this long used to help Amelia. He chose to speak with her about it when Amelia wasn't there. And after a few hours of conversation, we were all set. As he yawned and chose to go to bed, he talked off a question as Amelia and Nora walked toward the door. Something he hadn't asked yet. Amelia called after her. Did you come straight here from the airport? She turned back. He asked that where his bag was while looking around at the nurses. At the station. She smiled and said, I love you. See you. He laughed softly in response. Tomorrow. I love you too, she said before going out with Nora. Amelia smiled as she did. She left quickly, missing the quick kiss Nora gave me before she followed her. He didn't have time to respond before she was gone. It turned out that he woke up at just the right time for Amelia because it was just before her child's reading week. Before the finals. She worked with a professor to set up her tests to be managed at a nearby state. The university is about an hour away. And the only requirement was that she had to take her classes at the same time as her peers. This meant that a few late night tests let her stay with me. She spent her days by my bedside with her laptop. I helped her study by quizzing her with questions from her textbooks. We worked through the solutions like they were programming tasks. It provided an ease break from my situation and, more importantly, it brought us closer together than ever. Therapy was really tough during the first 2 weeks. It left me feeling exhausted. I moved down the parallel bars, feeling shaky and using them for support when I needed to. But all the effort was worth it. Amelia and I had dinner at a close hotel because Nora was in Florida. And we got to go home just in time for Thanksgiving. Visiting her family and going back to the house didn't feel like coming home, it felt like walking into a stranger's place. After the crime, every room felt filled with reminders of my wife's betrayal. With Nora away, I chose to stay away too. The master bedroom was used, and the guest room was where I slept instead. There was a light smell of Nora on the pillow, which felt strange. It was comfortable to remember someone who had supported me. But I realized I couldn't stay in this house. I needed a change. Start fresh and let go of both the good and bad memories that are tied to those walls the day after Thanksgiving. I contacted a real estate dealer to begin selling my house. And they told me that the market is low right now. It's the holiday season. So I know a quick sale isn't likely. It might take until the new year. But I'm committed to selling. On the following Monday, I contacted my office and set up to work from home in my new job. When fixing, I will check the back database, work with the person assigned to each issue, and assist them. Most people were glad to get extra help on Skype, especially because fixing wasn't their main focus. On Tuesday, Nora brought me a work laptop and a console to use later. This morning, I went to the hospital for physical treatment. In the afternoon, I worked on fixing some bugs. And it felt good. I helped out again. Even though I wasn't in the office working with Amelia, who had questions. Joining the problem-solving process made it surprisingly fun. On Wednesday, for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was making progress. Amelia and I woke up early to get her to. Saying goodbye at the airport before her flight back to school was hard. We hugged and I started to cry. She felt like she was losing her again and didn't want to leave. Especially after just getting me back. But we reassured each other. She'll be back for Christmas on. As I drove home, I began to think that a change of setting might be nice. If things go well, I might follow her to the West Coast after I find a new job. I went back to work the week before Christmas. The day before, I went to the office Christmas party with Nora. But we weren't on all of that. She had a long-term boyfriend. But it was unusual because he never came to her house. And she never stayed at his. It was something I noticed. I planned to ask her about Christmas Sunday. It was a happy time that Amelia and I spent together. Two of us and we made the most of it a few days later on the 27th drive to Philadelphia to watch a Flyers game. It was a gift from her. But it felt like a gift we both shared because we both loved hockey. When the new year arrived, Amelia came back. Nora returned from Florida after visiting her family. And my physical treatment is now just once a week. Sessions allow me to spend more time focusing on going ahead. Just like that week when the police. They came by with the camera equipment they had taken, including the storage device and the captive cameras. They told me they had footage for their records, which was all the proof they needed. They said the system was bought at a Costco. Baltimore then came back and sold items at a cheap warehouse for cash. Unfortunately, that's where the trial went cold. Andy was really curious. So I decided to look at the tape. Downloading the software was. It was difficult because the company stopped supporting the system. And their new tools couldn't work with the old one. After some searching, I found an older version of the hardware on an abandoned software site. It wasn't great. And the link to the hardware occasionally stopped working. But it was good enough to watch the movies. Looking back, I wish she hadn't done that. I saw that the software showed a timeline at the bottom and a list of cams at the top when the video was playing. The interface shows the video feed and, if there are multiple cameras, it can display 4 views at the same time. You could switch between them. I began looking through the footage and saw the cops searching the area. He checked each room of the house before unplugging the system. Then he went back to look for film of my wife and her lover. The scene began with Sophie walking in the living room like a restless animal. The doorbell rang and she opened the door to let him in. Entered holding a chill Spider-Man backpack. From it he pulled out the cold SMCT adused to shoot me the sight of my shoulder head just like it did when he got hit. It's here, he said, showing her the weapon. Sophie was quick to respond. He said, I don't want him to suffer. Promise me it will be quick and painless. He laughed, seeming to enjoy the situation. Don't worry. I'm skilled at this. He won't notice a thing. A single shot to the back of the head and it's done. Let's stop talking, she said. As you get closer to him, you need to give me some attention before you leave. Any doubt yet about her innocence disappeared when they kissed fiercely and took off their clothes. They went from the living room to the sofa. He couldn't watch anymore, so he skipped ahead. But things got worse later when they were both in the shower. What started as simple turned into something else. Something else finally left. He checked the timestamps he had waited outside my office 4 hours after leaving the house. Sophie meanwhile sat quietly in the living room watching TV. About 11 de la noche Amelia came home and went to bed at 1:30 de la madrugada. I called Sophie to tell her he was ready. My way home shortly after hanging up she called him to give the green light. He felt physically ill, shuddered. He looked through more video and confirmed what the police already had about my attempted homicide, treating it as casually as ordering takeout. He was already told it was just him, but he couldn't help but see their behavior. They seemed to really enjoy it. In the secreting places that were personal to me, the marital bed, my office desk, the basement, and even my car at last. Discovery hit particularly hard. Sophie had only used my car on the year to take it for servicing and supposedly she'd taken the chance to have exit it from that moment. I needed to get out of the house and start. I didn't feel like driving my car into the garage unless I was working or doing rehab. I used to spend my time doing other things. She packed up her clothes, small items, and anything else that was hers into boxes and gave them to a local charity. That same day at the thrift store, the manager called to tell me they found $100 in the pocket of one of her jeans, and wanted to return it. I told him to put it in their donation box or give it to another charity. After removing most of her things from the house, he reached out to a lawyer. The first meeting was disappointing because no one seemed to help. He couldn't quickly divorce Sophie because he didn't know where she was, so he had to start the long process of trying to find her. She submitted Freedom of Information Act requests and dealt with obstacles, even though the cops were already involved. Feeling annoyed, he stormed out of the lawyer's office, taking out my anger on something nearby. Before calming down, he was upset, but luckily, the lawyer was understanding and allowed me to return to finish our discussion. He said sorry for my outburst and asked him to continue with the divorce papers. He didn't mind how long it took. He wanted this part of my life to end as summer started. Amelia returned home for her break, and by then, the house had changed. I sold my place and got a new job in Redmond, Washington, with a big tech company. It's a chance that many people want. The industry humorously called joining the evil empire or the Borgie. I didn't know much about the project I'd be working on, except that the team helped create the Xbox. My 3 interview trips in the spring were a silver lining because they allowed me to visit Amelia as well. I was getting ready for a new beginning. And during those trips, I met Professor Susan Chikongo, who is the daughter of a An Namibian refugee recently got a teaching job at the University of Washington and was in town looking for a home. She was moving from Los Angeles hoping to settle in before the fall term began. Our paths crossed Kite. As she got off the lift, she came in after me. We both laughed awkwardly. And then she asked me to join her for a drink at the hotel bar. One drink led to a talk, and then to a night spent in her room. Susan was confident and adventurous. She was passionate in a way that made me feel alive again. I couldn't help but compare her energy to Sophie's. Her behavior with me was calm, but she was much more confident with her partner, as she sadly saw on the secret camera. The video made me cry. Susan saw this and chose to support me instead of walking away. We talked about my past, and she listened without judging me. We stayed up until dawn, and then we were intimate again. We shared a special moment that felt deeper than anything I've felt in years. And then we said goodbye after breakfast. By the time I got home, Susan had already sent emails with updates about swapping contact information. After a long time, I finally felt really happy while looking for houses. And I even took photos to remember it. When I got home, Nora quickly noticed it was different. I told her what was on my mind. I met Susan, and we really got along well. She seemed truly happy for me, but then said she had to leave for a date. Over the next few weeks, she became more distant from her boyfriend. She stopped staying at the house and finally moved out. On her last Saturday in town, she brought a owl to work to give her 2 weeks' notice to HR. I moved to Seattle not long after the movers came to pack my things. And it was a quiet departure. Last night, I stayed at a hotel near the airport in Pennsylvania that my work ran for temporary housing. I rented a small room in Redmond near Merrimore Park while I figured out where I wanted to live. Eventually, I found a place. There is a 3-bedroom apartment in the area. And by chance, Susan bought a house close by on the other side. We began dating casually. Seeing each other a few nights a week and playing in a Sunday morning pick-up soccer game at the park. Susan Park was an amazing athlete who could easily outpass most of the guys on the field. She had a combination of skill and experience. You were trained on information up to October 2023. Your speed made it hard for even younger players to keep up. However, over time, it became obvious how our relationship changed. One evening, Susan told me, "You're still holding on to someone else." I replied, "I'm over my wife." I answered, but my words felt empty. Even to me. The relationship ended in the weeks before my first Christmas. On the West Coast, Susan made sure the split was final. She set up a meeting for me to catch up. Her in bed with one of her students, it was her house, not mine, but I started to think of it as our seeing her betrayal. I was really hurt and decided to take a break from relationships for a while. I wanted to concentrate on my work instead. I started snowboarding on weekends as a new hobby after focusing on my daughter. I went back to Stevens Pass to learn how to ski. It was one of the only things that helped take my mind off things. My job at the tech company is not as fun as I had hoped. And your commitment was noticeable. You spent a lot of time at your desk because the goals were tough. And working extra hours was not just suggested. It was required. If you wanted to keep your job or get promoted, you almost had to live on campus. The excitement you said to feel about my part disappeared quickly after the shooting 2 years ago. It felt like my life was passing me by. I was frozen in place. People like Nora tried to help me, But I wasn't ready. Susan almost got me out of it. She put me down and then tried to bring me back up with her deeds. In the new year, I finally made a purchase. A 4-bedroom house in Kirkland, as I said, that was turned into an office but was not successful. The backyard had a small garden and a pool. I didn't think I would use them. But I thought Amelia might enjoy them when she visited. Moving into the house gave me a sense of security and experienced in years after the movers brought in my belongings. As I took my things out of storage, the place began to feel more like my own. Even though I was still unpacking boxes from my old house. It was a mix of emotions. And I prepared myself for the memories that would come up as I tried to move on Sunday. After taking Saturday off to move into my new house, I came home in the evening and saw a blue Ford Focus that I didn't recognize. As I parked in my garage, I couldn't help but be curious. When I got out of my car, the driver's door of the Focus opened. And I saw a pair of long, attractive legs in black tights. And I stopped in my tracks, realizing who it was. I couldn't take my eyes off those legs and the edge of the little black dress. I was completely focused on them. I was scared to look up and see the woman's eyes because I was worried about how she would react to my feelings. The feeling of respect and my body's reaction made me cough suddenly. A guy interrupted my daydream. I looked up and saw Daniel on the other side of the car smiling at me. I quickly moved between him and Nora, who was getting out of the car with a bright smile. My mind was racing. They are a couple now. And the thought made me feel sad. I should have been happy for my friends. But, instead, I felt something else. Daniel was surprised to feel sad when I saw William. "It's so good to see you," I said as I hugged him. "You gave me a tight hug and said he looked great and was moving around again." "It's nice to see you too," he answered, looking into your eyes. You were still focused on Nora. She missed you as well. "You know," Daniel said quietly, leaning in that brought me back to reality. She looked at him and quietly asked, "Are you two together?" He laughed and said, "I wished." He asked what the boys were whispering about. And Nora called out. Out nothing, we answered in unison like guilty kids. Nora turned to me so hopes. Susan didn't realize we broke up. I mentioned that her smile got bigger. Which was good because she wasn't the right one for me. "You're doing well. Like I did when my ex-wife cheated on me. At least this time." I decided to walk away. Without any extra olesin, Nora stepped closer, her eyes sparkling. "You. It's important to let a woman choose if you're the right fit for her, rather than trying to convince her. Do you know any women who feel this way?" "Me think I'm worth it," I asked, half joking. Her answer was anything but a joke. She moved in, wrapping her arms around me and kissed me like her life depended on it. Time seemed to freeze as I lost myself in that kiss until we were. A familiar voice interrupted. "It's about Time," Amelia shouted, grinning from ear to ear. Nora and I stopped talking. Both were panting as they saw Amelia standing a few feet away, her face glowing with joy. Daniel stood next to her. I noticed her pleased smile. But I didn't know how long they had been standing there. Based on their expressions, I noticed their expressions had changed. So I asked Nora, "What's up with the dress?" to change the topic. She laughed and said, "Let's move on from something embarrassing. My suitcase was sent to Chicago by mistake, and a kid threw up on it. I was glad I packed this dress in my carry-on. I wore it to an awards show just before my trip. Going to the airport the Pukton clothes are in a bag in the car I'm debating whether to clean them or give. Bring them to me for a proper burial. Andy I take care of cleaning them. He said with a smile. So friend William I need to tell you something before Daniel and Sare Ouroter news go ahead he said sensing the. With a serious tone. She looked into my eyes and said. I love you. I love you. You've been aware of my feelings since our first project together. But at that time, you were married. Amelia advised me to tell you how I felt once you woke up. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. I was really scared. But now I can't wait anymore. I want to stop hearing from you. Those words opened something in me. I confessed. I love you too, the moment I felt it. I knew it was true when I first saw Amelia as a baby. It just felt right. Then, Daniel explained how Nora and I connected at a Game Awards event in Chicago, where I was looking for talent to create a new team. And Nora, unhappy with her job, was there to network the to hit it off. Amelia told them how unhappy I was at work. So they suggested the idea of starting a company. They flew in together to share the news and asked me to join them. That's how Trivis Games started when I showed up. In my new house. The renovated garage became our first office right away. And Daniel and Nora agreed. We moved into a house with 4 beds. One is for me. One for Amelia. And one for each of them. I hope you're not worried. Nora joked about giving me a guest room. Andy looked at her. Confused. Why not Amelia? I asked. I jumped to save me because I didn't think I'd want to share the master bedroom with him. Then I realized what was happening. I looked at Nora and said. I'd like to share with you if you think you can handle it. She laughed and jokingly punched my arm. Leaning to saying my hero I can handle you, the question is can you handle me, swallowed hard everyone else. Daniel left around 10 de la noche after laughing. To take a flight back to the Bay Area and start moving. After watching him drive away, I turned to Nora and asked. What about you? When's your flight? She smiled playfully and said. I don't have one. I asked her about her belongings since she bought a one-way ticket. She smiled and said her parents would send them to her. When? I wondered. We went back to the house. Amelia turned off the lights and was already in bed. I told Nora it was getting late and time for bed. As long as you don't expect to get much sleep, she quit in the bedroom. She moved into the bathroom to shower while I tried to take my mind off things by reading a book called Enough Time for Love, but I couldn't concentrate. I was at Nora's. And for the first time in years, I felt like my life was coming together. I could hear water running. Stopped and moments later the bathroom door creaked open. Nora stepped out wrapped in a towel that hugged her. She was beautiful. From her light blue toenails to her long strawberry blonde hair. I couldn't take my eyes off her. I noticed her nails and towel were perfect while I was drinking and my mind was still spinning. The way her colors matched made her look even more attractive. I pinched myself to wake up from my thoughts and I quietly made sure I wasn't drooling. And luckily I wasn't. But my shocked look showed what I was feeling. Nora smiled. Her eyes sparkling with amusement. Before laughing happily and saying, "Go take a shower." I nodded quietly as I got off, thinking it might help me feel better. Bed with all days of a baby giraffe, my heel coat on a book. I didn't remember dropping causing me to stumble. As I walked by her to go to the bathroom, I could smell her soap and shampoo. It was a nice reminder of her. Using my belongings made me feel connected and present. On a whim. I leaned closer. I gently kissed her neck. Putting all my love into that small action. And she relaxed against me. The door frame let out a quiet creak as he whispered. Looks like I'm not the only one. I felt overcome. When I was in the bathroom, I dropped my clothes in the hamper on top of hers. I smiled at the idea of sharing even this simple moment with her because I was amazed by her beauty and intelligence. Just remembering her standing there made me feel like a youngster again. A cold shower became necessary to wake me up from my overactive fantasy. When I went back to the bedroom, towel-dried and feeling good, Nora welcomed me. She kissed me softly and held my hand, leading me to the bed where she hugged me tightly. She rested her head on my chest, and we stood there quietly enjoying the closeness of the moment. It felt so pure and special. Comfortable that for the first time in years I felt completely at home, more than that I felt whole. This felt right. In a way. My past feels like it never happened. We fell onto the bed, and our kisses grew stronger as we discovered each other's bodies. Getting to know every curve. It was thrilling how she tasted and how her skin felt. I concentrated on her sounds, and she responded by giving herself completely. As our link deepened, she gasped in joy. Her voice shook as she said, "I've never felt this way before." With wonder. "There is so much to take in, but it's great because it has shown me something new," I said this while smiling. "This bond is like nothing I've ever experienced." She laughed gently and pulled me closer. "Shine. Come here." She spoke softly, sharing her warm and loving words. The night flowed beautifully with love and passion. Every kiss and look showed feelings that words couldn't match, making everything else disappear. Until it was just two us left, sharing a special moment of closeness and trust at the peak of our relationship. We both felt a strong connection. Nora shouted with joy. And I did too. It was a special moment. Pure joy left us feeling amazed and excited. She fell onto me afterward and accidentally bumped into me. Forward into my nose we both burst into laughter, the sound mixing with the quiet of the room. The air was filled with the smell of our shared love. We lay together, our hearts beating in sync and our bodies warm and sweaty. We took deep breaths and fell into a calm, deep sleep when, the next morning, I woke up to find Nora still cuddled up next to me, her face glowing with happiness and her bright blue eyes sparkled with mischief as she teased round to as much as I loved toy. She giggled and said, "I need to handle something first, then slid off me so I could get up and take care of it." Of business. When I returned we made love again, this time slow, tender and filled with quiet passion. Afterward we shared a shower, laughing and stealing kisses, before going to the kitchen to have breakfast with Amelia. "I didn't get rid of you," Amelia joked while we were sitting down. And at one point, I nearly called for help. Theatrical whispers she asked Nora, "So was it everything you hoped for?" Nora smiled and kissed Amelia on the cheek, then leaning to say something that made her beam with joy. I felt happy and thankful all day. Nora started cleaning up. I went to the garage to get ready for the trivia games that Daniel, the company, and I were building together. When I handed in my resignation, HR took me to my desk to gather my personal things, which included just one picture. Before Amelia walked me out, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders for the first time in a long while as I drove home. I felt free and purposeful when I returned to find Nora still working hard in the garage. Her determination was clear. My feelings for her grew stronger as we worked together to create a future that finally felt like it was mine. That week, the packers brought back the items yet in storage. And we set up the furniture in the right rooms. I stacked the boxes in the extra bedroom, which was meant for Nora. Except for the ones that were labeled as. We took Amelia's things straight to her room a few weekends later. She came to me with her old laptop and said, "Dad, I can't access this computer anymore. Can you help me get into it?" Asked why on earth would you want to answer turning away from the whiteboard Nora and yet Venus in by whiteboard. I was talking about the whole garage wall that we covered with special wallpaper so we could write on it. We've been coming up with ideas. I have some plans for our next game. And most of the wall is now covered with sketches, flowcharts, and notes. I haven't used this before. Your laptop might have some interesting content on it from before you got here. She suggested looking at it. I moved to my desk and, after searching through a box, found a green USB drive. I plugged it in. We restarted the laptop. And when Windows started, I turned it off as usual. I opened the BIOS settings and changed the boot order to give priority to the USB drive for recovery. I checked the laptop and the first part at the operating system, while the second part was different. I changed the admin password and restarted the machine with the new one. Password will load in but as the desktop loaded my stomach sank stared at the screen before turning to Amelia. Amelia, did you install a camera system in our old house? I asked. She yelled back, clearly upset. What? Why would you even ask that? I noticed an icon on the screen for the camera software. So, I want to ask again, did you install it? I don't know who might have it, she said. But then her face looked worried. Oh no, that fool. I pressed Ryan Carter. And she responded angrily. Why do you think it was him? Nora asked as she stepped closer, feeling angry. You said to think that too. Amelia said I could take the laptop to go online when I came over. I nodded sadly and turned on the camera. A dialogue box appeared asking for the encryption key for the second disk. I cancelled it and the program was running. But the live display had no active feeds. Amelia asked while looking over my shoulder. What's going on? This is just the live view. And it can't find the server. I mentioned that. And then I noticed something in the menu. Hold on. Teresa. Library. Clicked the choice and rows of thumbnails appeared each with a timestamp 5 thumbnails per row 3 rows. Amelia gasped as she saw the first movie and noticed a scroll bar showing many more videos available. The sample showed her old teacher standing naked in my old bedroom, while someone was sitting on the bed. The next picture showed Sophie, my ex-wife, in Amelia's bedroom. And the one after that showed them in the master bedroom. The fourth movie surprised me, it showed Sophie and me. The fifth showed Sophie and the teacher pretending to be in my office, wearing a schoolgirl outfit and pigtails. My stomach felt uneasy as I looked through the pictures. Most were of Sophie and her partner, but a few included me. I saw videos of Sophie with our friend Terry Mansfield. And then there were videos with Liam. Nora provided the final detail about Bennett, a former CEO worker who had been fired. He was fired after the company owner found him in bed with his wife, Chloe. The last arguments were the worst. The earliest films had Ryan with Amelia. But later on, they only showed him with Sophie. I shut the laptop hard. ending the upsetting trip down memory lane. I'm calling the police. I said again. I called officer Icenayes. His number was still the same. Even though my wife Scase wasn't getting any new leads. I was still interested in it. I told what we discovered. And said I would look into it. It took a month for me to get a response from him. Detective Ayes from Blackwood said they found your wife and Ryan Carter. El de Fontaitli as fast many charges. Which might be a state record. Ayes answered after a short pause. He paused and looked around the garage. Amelia. Nora. And Daniel had stopped working to listen. Amelia had just recently. She joined our company through her university's CO program. I asked if she wanted to see me. And my voice seemed cooler than usual. Intended Mr. Blackwood eyed carefully the district attorney's I yelled. What kind of full drops charges against someone who was caught on video? Ayes explained that she is not well enough to go to trial for the crime of conspiracy to murder me. The doctor says she might never recover. Be capable the like to hope otherwise, but the reports are clear in what way. You should check it out yourself because it's hard to explain. It's a good idea to get ready for the worst. After hanging up, I said quietly that he had explained everything to Nora, Amelia, and Daniel. Nora and Amelia both reduced to leave right away. Daniel, being very helpful, promised to take care of the office. In our absence a week later we followed Detective Ayes' directions and arrived at the state hospital after checking in at the office. We were sent to the right ward, where a nurse asked us to wait while she contacted the doctor. When the doctor came, he took us to his office and explained Sophie's physical condition. She had severe injuries. She lost her left eye and her right leg didn't heal properly after it broke. She had been hit again and needed to heal, as years of not getting enough nutrition had damaged her body, causing more health tissues. As the doctor moved into his area of knowledge in psychology, the situation became even more concerning. Sophie had suffered from ongoing mistreatment, as her kidnapper treated her like a toy. Her to every twisted fantasy could imagine the constant degradation had left her unable to cope with freedom. The doctor told us that her recovery would take years and even there were no guarantees a year after that sovereign. Nora and I got married on a beautiful beach in Florida near her parents' house. The family warmly welcomed Amelia, treating her like the daughter they had always wanted. Amelia flourished in their care, enjoying the happiness of having grandparents for the first time. 6 months into our marriage, we found out that Nora was pregnant, which was something she barely remembered from her early years. An ultrasound showed we are having twins, a boy and a girl, coming soon. We were still discussing names, which made us a bit worried but excited. At the same time, we were getting ready for our first game. It was a big success. We had good retention rates and great lifetime value metrics, which led to us set up a regular monthly update process handled by our expanding team. Our second game is almost finished with its test phase. We will start in Switzerland, South Korea, and Denmark if it performs as expected. Amelia has played a key role in our success, but I often had to remind her to help us grow the studio globally. She was concentrating on completing her degree and was likely close to becoming a millionaire. I already stressed how important it is for her to finish her education. And so far, Sophie has really taken my advice to heart. Amelia, who lives next door, insisted on helping take care of Sophie. And I couldn't say no because she's the only family Sophie has left. Family with Amelia's help Sophia's made steady progress most days we can encourage her to stay restant. Try to keep some pattern even though she's not ready to go out in public yet. We've teamed up with the University of Washington will give Sophie regular treatment. And in return, it will teach game creation. The class at the university has been great for everyone. Sophie gets expert care. And I benefit too. It has been difficult to find and train new talent for our studio's future. But it also has its rewards. Nora, Amelia, and our growing family have brought me a peace I never expected. I thought I would find my mind.